On March 16, 1957, at 8 o'clock in the morning, a 300-foot-long spacecraft landed in a field in Alexandria, Virginia. 2 local police officers arrived on the scene. Then the door of the craft slowly opened. The 2 officers drew their guns, not sure what to expect. To their surprise, out walked a normal-looking guy. He smiled at the officers and actually waved hello. Before the policeman could say a word, the stranger said in clear English, "I need to see the president." 9 months after this event, NASA was founded. This is the story of what happened in between. In the fall of 1957, the Soviets launched Sputnik 1 and 2, the first man-made satellites to go into orbit. This caught the United States off guard. The American population was terrified that the Russians could launch an attack from space, and the American military was embarrassed by Russia's superior technology. President Eisenhower demanded action. He asked Congress to establish an agency to direct American activities in space. And in July of 1958, NASA was created. It didn't take long for the United States to catch up and to surpass the Soviet Union. And this couldn't have been done without NASA and the leaps forward in technology that NASA provided. NASA has played a huge role in shaping the modern world we know today. They helped create foam mattresses, Velcro, smartphone cameras, freeze drying, solar panels, and much more. NASA owns over 2,600 patents and is credited for over 2,000 commercial products derived from their secret technology. And these NASA-provided leaps forward happened fast. Some might even say they happened a little too fast. This is Porch Lore. And I'm your host, Devin. This is the tale of Valiant Thor. In March of 1957, a stranger arrived at the Pentagon under the name of Valiant Thor, claiming to be an extraterrestrial from the planet Venus. He was said to possess vast knowledge and a powerful message for humanity. This alleged visitor, often described as tall, elegant, and impeccably dressed, became a figure shrouded in mystery, leaving behind a tale that would spark endless fascination. Valiant Thor's story has its roots in an era marked by a tense Cold War atmosphere, nuclear anxiety, and a growing interest in the UFO phenomena. Though skeptics have dismissed his story as science fiction, those who have claimed to encounter Valiant Thor recall him as a figure of striking intelligence and serene confidence. His alleged interactions with high-ranking government officials, his unusual demeanor, and his message of peace and warning make the story of Valiant Thor one of the most puzzling accounts in American history. The story of Valiant Thor began when he allegedly appeared outside Alexandria, Virginia on a quiet morning in March of 1957. According to accounts, 2 policemen on a routine patrol witnessed his arrival. He looked like any well-dressed gentleman, clad in a tailored suit and shiny shoes, but his demeanor was oddly detached. Noticing the officers, he raised his hand and waved, in a universal gesture of peace, and approached them. He explained that he was there to deliver a message to the leaders of Earth. His origins, he claimed, were not of this planet, but from Venus. Initially dismissive, the officers humored the man's peculiar claims, but were struck by his strange manner of speaking. He was polite, articulate, and oddly charming, speaking perfect English, yet with an accent no one could place. Realizing that this was no ordinary encounter, the officers contacted their superiors. The next day, Valiant Thor was introduced to a gathering of high-ranking government and military officials. On the morning of March 16, 1957, Harley Andrew Byrd, the nephew of the legendary Admiral Richard Byrd, is in his office at the Pentagon. Now, he's a high-ranking official working for Project Blue Book, the top-secret military program that studied UFOs from 1952 to 1969. Around 8:30 in the morning, Byrd receives a panicked phone call from the Alexandria Police Department. Officers were on their way right now with a visitor. A few minutes later, the police car pulled up to the Pentagon. The Secretary of Defense, Charles Wilson, and 6 of his staff are there to meet the stranger. Out of the car steps a tall man with brown hair and an easygoing manner. He looks completely normal, except he's wearing a silver and gold jumpsuit. The stranger is ushered into an elevator that goes to the basement of the Pentagon, and from there, an underground train takes the group of men to the White House. They're taken directly to the Oval Office where President Eisenhower is waiting. The president asks the stranger his name. Valiant, he replies, or Val. Where do you come from, Val? Eisenhower asks. I come from the planet that your Bible calls the morning and evening star. Venus? Asks the president. Yes, sir, Val replies. Eisenhower asks for proof, and Valiant offers to show him his ship. Eisenhower suggests that they sit and talk for a while first. Val says that Earth has been quietly observed for thousands of years. But with the invention of the atomic bomb, Val's people decided to intervene. Val was sent by the High Council, which represents a governing body that spans many planets and many intelligent species. Kind of like the Star Trek Federation. Val says the High Council can help solve a lot of Earth's problems and is offering assistance. The president asks Val to stay at the Pentagon as his guest, and Val agrees. The president also asks Val to join him at a meeting at Howard Menger's house in Highbridge, New Jersey. It was a small gathering of researchers and scientists who advised the president on UFO matters. And Val once again agrees. He would also like to bring along the rest of his crew. Since Val and his crew would be wearing normal human clothes for the meeting, the military wanted to examine and test the spacesuit he had worn. They called it the Miracle Garment, and though it had fabric enough to cover a 6-foot-tall man, it weighed only 6 ounces, including the pair of boots. It was also indestructible. They shot it with guns, poured acid on it, used a laser, even a diamond-tipped drill. And not only could they not pierce the fabric, they couldn't even make a mark on it. And at the meeting, something unexpected happened. A young Air Force photographer named August Roberts took pictures of Val and his crew. While at the meeting, at Howard Menger's house in Highbridge, New Jersey, these photos were taken of Val and the rest of his crew, Don, Jill, and Tanya. Val told the president how he could help solve world hunger, cure disease, and end all war. But they needed all countries with nuclear weapons to disarm. Eisenhower politely said that mankind just wasn't ready for such drastic changes. That's when Val realized he couldn't complete this mission alone. He needed someone from Earth who was open-minded enough to help him convince the leaders of the world. That person would spend the next 3 years working closely with Valiant Thor, and his name was Dr. Frank Stranges. Stranges was a well-known UFO researcher, author, and evangelist. He had PhDs in psychology, philosophy, and criminology. One day, Frank receives a call from a very excited August Roberts, the photographer at the Highbridge, New Jersey gathering. He has these photos of aliens, but doesn't know what to do with them. Frank is fascinated by the photos and starts using them in his lectures. And after giving a talk in Washington, D.C., Frank is signing copies of his book and chatting with guests when a woman introduces herself as Nancy Warren. She looks around, and while holding up a Pentagon ID card, she quietly asks if Frank wants to meet the man in those pictures. Of course, he jumps at the chance, and the next morning, Frank arrives at the Pentagon and is taken to Val's quarters. The door opens, Val extends his hand, gives a warm smile, and says, "Hello, Frank." Val knows everything about him, and they chat for a while. Then Val says he needs Frank's help. Frank wants to know why he, of all people, gets this honor. Val says that Frank has an open mind and was constantly talking to people and was also a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Frank Stranges was a Christian evangelist. He preached that Jesus and the angels are actually extraterrestrials and that there are references to UFOs in the Bible. So Valiant Thor's mission is to save mankind, specifically to help mankind return to God. Val asks Frank to help spread this message. In exchange, Val will share all the wonders of the universe with the human race. Though this meeting is a short one, Val reveals a lot of information. He confirms that there is intelligent life on other planets, many other planets, and there are more solar systems in the universe than we can even dream of. Over the next few years, Val works with the United States government and agrees to share some of his technology. As the years went on, Val confided in Frank Strange's about some of the extraterrestrial activity happening on Earth, claiming there are communication devices hidden in homes around the world, and today, some of these homes are in Reno, San Diego, Los Angeles, and Geneva. And the equipment is a holographic communicator. Whoever you're speaking with appears to be in the same physical room as you. And Frank saw one of those devices in use and couldn't believe it. This equipment allows communication between bases on Earth, between ships, and with the home base that's orbiting the planet. During this time, Val's work with President Eisenhower is not going well. A few times, Val convinces the president to convene a meeting of the United Nations to finally begin the process of joining the intergalactic community. But every time this comes close to happening, the CIA or Department of Defense interferes. They fear that if Val's message gets out, too many people will follow it, and this would threaten America's military supremacy, so they shut the president down. So Val's 3-year mission came to an end in 1960 and was not a success. President Eisenhower actually tried to give us a hint that this was happening. In his farewell address in 1961, just a year after Val's mission ends, Eisenhower warns against the establishment of a military-industrial complex. Creating a weapons industry would be dangerous. They would become too rich and too powerful. And remember, Eisenhower was like the armiest army guy on the planet. He was the supreme commander of the Allied forces in World War II. He was elected president because he was a war hero. Yet here he was, saying we can't allow weapons and war to become a profitable business. Colleagues of Eisenhower like General MacArthur thought this speech was crazy, especially with the Soviet Union becoming so powerful. But Ike meant it. Dr. Strange's, who would later go on to write extensively about his encounter with Valiant Thor in his book Stranger at the Pentagon, claimed that the mysterious visitor bore no identification, and his fingerprints, when checked, failed to yield any match in the government records. Thor's appearance was remarkable in itself. Standing at over 6 feet tall, he was strikingly handsome, with deeply set eyes, chiseled features, and a calm, penetrating gaze. His skin was a smooth olive tone with no apparent blemishes or imperfections. But it wasn't his appearance that left the deepest impression. It was the aura of intelligence and tranquility that surrounded him. He spoke with an assured calmness, exuding a presence that made even the most hardened military officers uneasy. In his meeting, Thor explained that he had come to deliver a warning to humanity. As nuclear weapons became more common and powerful, he was concerned that humankind was on the brink of destroying itself. His mission, he claimed, was to encourage Earth's leaders to abandon nuclear weapons and adopt peaceful resolutions to conflicts. His message was both stern and compassionate, a call for unity among the nations of Earth. He assured the officials that his purpose was not hostile and that he sought only to prevent needless destruction. Thor's message was straightforward. Humanity was approaching a point of no return. According to him, the escalation of nuclear arms and the lack of global unity were critical threats that could lead to catastrophic consequences. He also expressed concerns about Earth's environmental practices and urged the officials to consider more sustainable ways to protect the planet. In a written document he presented to the leaders, Thor outlined suggestions for peace and prosperity, emphasizing the need for cooperation between nations and the importance of scientific advancement for the betterment of all. He made it clear that his civilization had overcome similar challenges centuries before, and that he believed Earth had the potential to do the same. He even offered technological assistance, proposing that he could share knowledge that would aid humanity in ending hunger, poverty, and disease. The message of peace and technological advancement was undeniably appealing. But the government officials remained skeptical. Thor was questioned relentlessly about his origins, his intentions, and his alleged powers. Despite this, he answered calmly and consistently, never faltering in his story. He spoke of his home, describing Venus as a peaceful planet with advanced technology and harmonious societies. He claimed that his people had been observing Earth for centuries, watching its struggles and achievements from a distance. Despite his offers and warnings, Valiant Thor's presence began to cause unrest within the government. While some officials were intrigued by his knowledge and vision, others were threatened by his influence and his message. A man proposing to dismantle the world's nuclear arsenal and unite nations was, to some, a disruption of the global order. The Cold War mentality left little room for trust in a stranger from Venus, no matter how peaceful he seemed. Dr. Strange's maintained that Thor had promised to stay connected with a select few individuals who were willing to embrace his philosophy of peace and unity. He claimed that Thor continued to visit Earth occasionally, appearing briefly to share information or to check on the progress of his mission. Strange's himself claimed to have seen Thor several times after his initial departure, though always in secret and under carefully controlled circumstances. According to Dr. Strange's, Thor left Earth with a final message, a warning that humanity's window of opportunity for peace and advancement was closing, and that continued conflict would only bring devastation. The Pentagon, as expected, has never confirmed Thor's visit, nor have any official records been publicly acknowledged. Dr. Strange's passed away in 2008, but he remained adamant in Thor's existence until his final days. In his talks and writings, Strange's describes Valiant Thor as being of profound wisdom and compassion, a friend of humanity who came not to conquer, but to assist. Thor's alleged warning about nuclear weaponry and environmental harm have since become global concerns. His message, if genuine, seems to have been an accurate one, anticipating the very challenges that would dominate human discourse decades later. His plea for unity, although unheeded, resonates with those who believe in the potential for a world without conflict. Even today, Valiant Thor's story is shrouded in secrecy and speculation. UFO researchers, conspiracy theorists, and spiritual seekers all find meaning in his tale. The story serves as both a fascinating narrative of extraterrestrial contact and a haunting reminder of humanity's ongoing struggle for peace and cooperation. Thor's mysterious arrival and departure remain unexplained, an enduring puzzle that is yet to be solved. Perhaps the true message of Valiant Thor lies in the questions he left behind. If humanity had listened, would the world be different today? Could a message of peace from a visitor beyond our world have changed the course of history if we had only listened? The legacy of Valiant Thor endures, a curious and compelling tale of a mysterious stranger who walked among us, his secrets guarded and his mission incomplete. Whether he was truly from Venus or not, Valiant Thor's story continues to challenge boundaries of belief, inviting each generation to consider the possibility of peace and the choices that lie within our grasp.